It is that time of the month again, the last Thursday of the month, where we get our very special guest into the studio, Ambassador Yunyo Cho, to have a chat about what's going on the international scene. Ambassador, our wishes come true that you didn't want to discuss Ukraine again. We hoped it would end by now, but unfortunately not the case, is it? How are you doing this week, Ambassador?
I'm doing fine. The weather's too beautiful, but on the other side of the globe, the terrible war is going on.
Yeah, it is rather unfortunate, isn't it?
Right. So the war is dragging on with the rising casualty numbers and the terrible atrocities. Today, but let me start with the nexus between the war in Ukraine and the Korean Peninsula and go back to the Ukraine situation. People say that North Korea will hold on to their nukes as they see some lessons from Ukraine's decision, in 90s, to let go of their Soviet nuclear missiles deployed there under Budapest Memorandum in 1994 with a security guarantee from United States, United Kingdom, and Russia. Well, it's a shame that those guarantors didn't honor their commitments, but I think Ukraine didn't have the control over those missiles simply deployed on its soil because they were under control by the Soviet Command Center. Rather, a wrong lesson that North Korea might draw from the current conflict would be that Russia can get away with an conventional invasion when it is backed by a nuclear blackmail, which made the U.S. and NATO nervous about the possible escalation. And the latest missile test by North Korea showed that it may have the capability to deliver tactical nuclear warhead that can deny the U.S. forces access to the Korean theater. The other missiles also showed that the North has mastered how to evade interception by the U.S. and Korean missile defense system. This has serious military implications. So the next Korean government will face a daunting challenge of formulating a solid defense posture and readiness and credible deterrence while managing the North by offering genuine opportunities to achieve denuclearization and creating an environment for co-prosperity of two Koreas.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? A lot of people are going back and pointing to that instance back in the early 90s when Ukraine did give up their nuclear weapons. But as you mentioned, they weren't really much in a position to even look after those nuclear weapons. And a lot of the reason that that the West especially was pushing Ukraine to give up those nuclear weapons was because they didn't necessarily trust that the Ukrainian government at the time could look after them. And the risk was that they would fall into the hands not of the Russians, but of who knows who. Right.
It's a matter of nuclear safety.
Right. Yeah. So they didn't have much of a choice there, but it is unfortunate that any of the agreement that was made hasn't really been honoured anyway from any of the parties apart from Ukraine, who willingly gave up those nuclear weapons. Now, going back to the Ukraine now, it's been 7 weeks maybe?
Right.
8 weeks?
24th of February from...
What is the situation there now on the ground?
Well, we talked about the Russian declaration last month that it would concentrate its operation on eastern Ukraine rather than the rest of the country. And last week, it started a full-scale offensive there. And Putin badly needs to secure the Donbas area as evidence of successful special military operation to his people. And Russia is also shelling Odessa in southwest to seal off the whole Ukraine from the Black Sea. But until recently, the current focus is on Mariupol, the place of strategic importance, as well as the ongoing humanitarian crisis, which has lost 21,000 lives and now holds remaining 100,000 people. The city has been under siege for many weeks now, and the Russian ultimatum for last week was ignored by the Ukrainian troops who holed up inside a steel plant, Azovstal, to fight till the end. And Putin ordered his forces to block the plant so that even a fly can't
Right.
get in or out. And the battle over plain fields of Donbass will be different from those urban combats. And Russia may be running against time as Putin may wish to finish the war in whatever form possible before May the 9th, the Victory Day. On the other hand, there was a report on sinking of Moskva, the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, by Ukrainian missiles. It was such a big insult that Russian media reported the event as fire accident from loose ammunition, which, if true, would still be an embarrassment for the Russian military. So the Russian government is holding on to this kind of parallel reality, still arguing that everything is going on according to their plan.
Right, and that's I think everybody looking at the situation could say, how could this be the plan? From the Russian perspective, for it to drag on, and it's slowly becoming a bit of a quagmire. Now, the Russian president is being accused in some circles of committing genocide. What's this about then?
Right. When the Russian troops left the northern Ukraine, around 900 bodies were found in the suburbs outside Kiev that were believed to be civilians who had been summarily executed by the Russian troops. In Mariupol area as well, much bigger mass graves have been found. So many world leaders are now accusing Putin of war crime or even genocide, as Zelensky claimed. World public opinion is asking for accountability of the Russian leadership, including the use of International Criminal Court. And this outrage gave a new momentum and justification for the West's stronger support for Ukraine.
Right. Now, we talk about the West's support for Ukraine, and some people in some circles are saying that it's a bit of a pittance as far as military help goes. They're giving them a lot of aid in certain areas, loans and all that sort of stuff. But how is the West actually responding to all this?
Well, first of all, on the political side, the international community has been rallying around Ukraine. The UN General Assembly voted to suspend Russia from the Human Rights Council with the 93 to 24 votes, with 55 abstaining. So many countries are still staying in the middle. China, North Korea, Iran, and Syria joined Russia against the resolution. And Russia quit the council on its own, but was mocked by the Ukrainian ambassador, who said, "You don't resign after you're fired."
Yeah.
And the visit by three prime ministers from Czech, Poland, and now it's Czechia, Poland and Slovenia in March to show their solidarity with President Zelensky were followed by EU Commissioner von der Leyen, with High Representative Borrell and British PM Johnson in the middle of his Partygate scandal, and Chancellor Nehammer of Austria, who had a very disappointing meeting with belligerent Putin, and the prime ministers of Denmark and Spain. And on last Sunday, the U.S. Secretaries of State and Defense were there, who revealed their intention. I don't know why. I don't know whether it's the accident, but the defense secretary said that their purpose is to weaken Russia.
Right.
And the UN Secretary General Guterres is now in Ukraine after meeting with Putin and Lavrov. The West now the material support, particularly NATO countries, are providing more weapons while stopping short of putting their soldiers on the ground. And Russia is warning them that their aid would prolong the conflict and cause unforeseeable consequences. Still, the Czech Republic, which was another former communist state who suffered from Soviet invasion in 1968. Remember the spring of Prague. Czech sent a variety of heavy weapons like multiple rocket launchers, self-propelled howitzers, and Soviet-made T-72 tanks, and their own Czech-made armored vehicles. which caused Russia's lame protest about license
Right,
restrictions. And Slovakia also sent a Russian-made S-300 air defense system, also ignoring the Russian warning.
Ironic, isn't it?
Yes, and Britain, despite Partygate again,
Right.
also promised to provide armored vehicles and anti-aircraft, anti-ship, anti-tank missiles, and precision munitions. And now the United States, President Biden announced the new U.S. support of $800 million worth of weapons and $500 million of economic aid, which includes, again, howitzers and drones, which would be more effective for battles in the open fields in Donbass. So the latest package makes the total of U.S. support for Ukraine $3.4 billion. And President Biden quipped on the famous quotation by Teddy Roosevelt, "Speak softly but carry a big stick," by saying, "Speak softly but carry a large javelin," which destroyed so many Russian tanks.
Right, yeah, the javelins back in Afghanistan, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
However, NATO firmly refused the demand from Zelensky to establish a no-fly zone in Ukraine, because it would lead to a direct confrontation with Russia.
Right, which they don't want at the moment, and unfortunately, that was the funny thing,
Right.
the odd thing about the comment.
Lately, Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, mentioned the possibility of nuclear war.
Yeah, that is worrying there.
Yes.
Look, on the sanctions side, because that's what we hear a lot about, and we're told that these are hurting Russia, but it doesn't seem that Russia is budging on sanctions alone, does it?
Right. It may seem strange, but there are reasons. Russia was initially under severe strain due to these financial sanctions, but the ruble has stopped its collapse and it's coming back to its normal position.
Yeah, very weird, wasn't it?
Right? And Putin last week even touted that Russia registered its biggest current account surplus. Why? When this happens, people usually sell their falling local currency for, their local currency is falling, so they run to buy foreign currency. This is called bank run.
Right.
But the Russian authorities raised interest rate and put restrictions on ruble's conversion into foreign currency. So they could not sell ruble for foreign currency. And the Western, particularly China, still purchase Russian oil and gas that supplies foreign currency to Russia as much as, some say, $1 billion a day. Mm-hmm. This emergency measures keep rubles afloat, and the West should not finance the Russian war effort with such trade. Well, the winter's over, so their demand for gas should go down. And it just came in. The Russian company Gazprom just cut off its supply of gas to Poland and Bulgaria. Now they are explicitly weaponizing its energy trade.
The energy trade, right? Yeah, and that was a big worry that the Western European countries especially have as well. Look, we've seen President Volodymyr Zelensky making appeals to a lot of parliaments around the world with speeches. He seems to be talking to a different country's parliament almost every other day. He also appeared here at the Korean National Assembly, yeah?
Yes, he did. But the response from the Korean parliament was disappointing, to the point of being embarrassing. They, first of all, used a very small auditorium where only around 50 out of 300 members turned up, and most of whom didn't pay much respect to this war president from faraway nation who was fighting for his countrymen. These parliamentarians were only looking at their cell phones. The photo of this empty hall went around the globe, and a Russian scholar said on his tweet, "Look, this is the evidence that the Asians do not care about Ukraine." So it was a big insult. But we remember in the United States and EU and UK, Germany, and even in Japan,
Right.
they used their main parliamentary halls, which was fully packed, and all the sessions with Zelensky were ended with their standing ovation.
Bit embarrassing.
So, in a way, we can understand that the Korean MPs are preoccupied with domestic politics, particularly
Obviously,
in the aftermath of close race. 0.73% gap at the presidential elections. But this is somewhat still regrettable that they revealed how little they care about what's going on in the world, and they were not prepared to grasp the significance of this fight to their own security and the future of the world.
Yeah, it's just not a good optics. It doesn't look good, and it was ridiculed in some circles around the world. But nonetheless, Zelensky made his request for help from Korea, What happened there?
He did. He knew where Korea is strong industry-wise and in defense industry. But the Korean Ministry of Defense flatly refused to grant the Ukrainian request for air defense system, probably Korean surface-to-air missiles, reiterating the position that we cannot provide any lethal weapons except simple equipment like bulletproof helmets. Some may think Korea needs Russian help for peace on the Korean Peninsula, and we may also have some economic interests there. But Europe has much more economic stake in Russia, but finds helping Ukraine a matter of principle and a higher priority.
Right.
South Korea could have tried some creative ways using third parties. After all, Korea is already on the Russian list of unfriendly countries for joining the sanctions by the West.
Right, so it doesn't matter anyway about the reputation with the Russians. But the president-elect is also already working on the framework of his foreign policy, hasn't he? So what's he been doing on this?
Well, President-elect Yoon pledged to build South Korea into what he dubbed a global pivotal state that contributes to freedom, peace, and prosperity in the world based on sound diplomacy and security. And he emphasized the need to strengthen Korea's strategic alliance with the United States through our shared values of liberal democracy, market economy, and human rights. They all sound good,
right.
But the issue would be how to practice them. But as a first step, he is sending a policy consultation delegation to our main partners. The foreign minister nominee, Representative Park Jin, that went to the United States in March and had meetings with the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman to strengthen and widen our alliance. Another delegation led by Mr. Chung Jin-seok, Vice Speaker of National Assembly, is visiting Japan this week to mend the strained bilateral relations and look for a new future-oriented partnership. There will be another one to China soon. Well, Russia will have to wait.
Probably, yes. Now, look, North Korea was busy in January with multiple launches of various missiles themselves, and around the presidential election, they've restarted their work as well with some colourful verbal attacks as well, yeah?
Yes, they did. We remember North Korea had 8 missile tests in the month of January to show off its whole gamut of missiles with different capabilities. And the North resumed the test on February 27th and conducted 3 more tests in March, the last one being its latest ICBM with the... Did you see the video? The funny music video.
Brilliant? It was brilliant. Yeah.
Yes, starring Mr. Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
And on April 16th, the North tested its new brand of missile, suspected to be capable of delivering tactical nuclear warhead, as I said at the start, which is more serious threat to South Korea. On the other hand, the prediction that North would stage its 7th nuclear test on April 15th, the 110th anniversary of Kim Il-sung, Well, that prediction seems to have prevented the actual test. But in the late evening of April 25th, their armed forces anniversary, the North had a military parade. But Mr. Kim Jong-un declared that the use of their nuclear weapons is not limited to self-defense.
Right. That's
Wow.
a worry. Yeah.
This is spooky.
Yeah.
And this almost amounts to a nuclear blackmail. So we will see. And this month we will have another joint military exercise with the United States, the fourth time with the simulation only, no field exercise, while the North keeps enhancing its missile capabilities all the time. This practice may change with the new administration. We will see how the North behaves with the possible provocations of, again, a nuclear test or missile test around the date of new president's inauguration, or proposed visit to Korea by Biden. So we will see.
I watch this space indeed. And folks, if you do want to listen to the entirety of my interview with Ambassador Yoon Yo-chol today, head it up on gfn.or.kr under This Morning Gwangju. You'll find the segment right there. And we'll have to leave it there for today. Ambassador, thank you very much for that. I hope you have a fantastic month.
Thank you. You too.